I thought I'd start this session slightly differently than we normally do and just include a very, very short Dharma story. So it's from a children's book and it's literally 2 paragraphs or three or 4 paragraphs. Yeah, so it's less than 2 pages. Because there's pictures and it's from a story called Buddhist Tales, which is a children's storybook. So it's titled Useless Work. An old monk and a young monk were walking along the road when they came to a rushing stream. It was neither too wide nor too deep, and they decided they would wade across. Just as they were about to do so, a beautiful young woman who'd been waiting on the bank approached them. She was rather elegantly dressed, and she fluttered her fan, batted her eyelashes, and smiled at them with big eyes. "Oh," she said, "the current is so swift, the water's so cold, and if my kimono, if it gets wet, it will spoil the silk. Will one of you please carry me across?" And she edged invitingly to the young monk. Now the young monk, he thought the woman's behaviour was disgusting. He thought she was spoiled and shameless and, well, she ought to be taught a lesson. On top of that, as a monk, he'd taken vows and was not supposed to have anything to do with women. So he ignored her completely and strode across the stream. The old monk, he just gave a shrug, picked up the young woman and carried her across the water, set her down on the other side. And the 2 monks continued on their journey, travelling away down the road. They walked in silence, but the young monk was clearly bristling. He was furious inside. He thought his companion had done entirely the wrong thing by indulging that spoilt young woman. And even worse, by touching her, he'd broken a monk's rule. He raved and ranted in his mind as they walked over hills and through the fields. And finally, he could stand it no longer. Shouting loudly, he began, scolding his companion for carrying the woman across the stream. He was beside himself with anger and completely red in the face. "Oh dear," said the old monk. "Are you still carrying that woman? I put her down over an hour ago." He gave a shrug and continued down the road. So, if you find your seat, whether that's chair or floor, as always, and just let yourself settle. It's probably worth visiting the body a little, particularly if you've been busy during the day. So give yourself time just to adjust, whether that means subtly shifting or moving a little. You may find that you even have a slight oscillation of the spine as you come to kind of center or midline or plumb line or whatever you want to call it. You don't need to be rigid, but it is more or less upright. And your shoulders, thus the arms and hands, can rest. And there's that balance of the head. It's not, again, not fixed. It's just a feeling almost of buoyancy or ease to the way the head aligns itself with gravity. It's pretty much over the pelvis, will be about right. too far forwards, not too far back. Chin might drop in for some of us. And face can relax. That includes the eyes, which are more than welcome to close, unless you know you'll nod off, in which case keep a soft gaze. And within that form, without collapsing or losing tone, you want to relax. So what does that mean in this context? It means let go of unnecessary effort. And a lot of us, that manifests most visibly to others in our face. So the forehead, the eyes, the jaw. And a lot of us carry our worldly woes on our shoulders, so you might want to recheck those. Soften the chest a little, so we're not bracing against the world. And you might want to soften in the middle belly, the middle body around the belly, or around the waist. So that there's no impediment in the lower body as we breathe. Things are free and playful there. Potentially playful and free. So there's a relaxing or a relaxed, possibly body, nicely settled. Could you allow yourself to come to a quality of stillness without freezing? And it's a kind of receptive stillness. In fact, let's use listening as a tool. So if you're aware of the kind of ambient soundscape around you, or lack of sound if you're lucky, just to almost allow the body to listen, as if the whole system was very receptive. So we're not closing down quite yet. It's open. And you'll find as sounds come to your attention, there is a tendency, quite possibly, in, I don't know if all of us, but many of us, to identify what we hear. We almost, without pause, without gap, know what it is. So you hear a car, you know it's a car. Or you hear an aeroplane, you've immediately identified it. So just let sounds come as best you can. And our useless work here is having a value to what we hear. So it's the trail of thought that becomes associated or arises from hearing something. Even if it's my voice, you've quite possibly already got an opinion about the practice or the tone of voice. So what we want to begin to let go is the association with our impressions. And here we're using an external example like sound. So the skill is just to be receptive, let it come. It's there in our awareness for a moment, and then it may fall away. And if you notice yourself over labeling and then thinking about, can you let it be? You just let it fall away and re-listen. And then similarly, bring your attention or your kind of listening quality or receptive quality inwards. So once again, you're sensitive to your body. And can you just experience the movement of breath? So try not to impose, first of all. Just let yourself experience it where it is. There's no right or wrong or good place or bad place. You just know from feeling or sensing that there's sensation in the body somewhere as you breathe. And just in the same way you were listening, follow the breath. You can experience it arise. You can experience the exhale as it diminishes, as it extends away. However you experience that, whether it's a expanding and condensing or whether it's just a change in sensation. So there's a movement and a pulse to it or a flow to it. Doesn't need opinion. And then if you can let go any memory of how it was before, or even how it was the previous breath, or how the practice was yesterday, and so on. So you experience it pretty much in the here and now. Not just breath by breath, but each stage of the breath. And each moment within each stage. And don't worry about how it might be or where we're going or what you've got to do later. So you let go any kind of recollections and thoughts of the past. And you let go any projection forwards if you can. And finally, if you're feeling the breath and you're with it, there's nothing to worry about in the practice. There's no present concern. All you need to do is sit relatively still and be conscious of your breathing. So you don't need to doubt yourself or question the method or your own technique, or your own ability to stay with it. Just remind yourself when you need to stay with the breath. If you drift, so what? Put it down again. Come back. And then can you even relax that a touch? So you give yourself more space to experience the sensation of breathing in. The mind can have a little more room, a little more space and time, if you like. So you can just let things be. You almost sit in the breath rather than thinking of the breath in you. I'm going to leave you in silence for a few minutes, probably around 5 minutes. And I'll come back in with my voice when we're ready to shift attention. So stay with your breathing if you can, and stay with that loose, kind of open awareness. It's not too tight, but nor is it so slack you're spacing out. Just right. Good. When you're ready, come back to the feeling of the body on your seat, your kind of weight and substance. Just keep a soft or a low gaze or the eyes closed for a moment. And without emoting, without any value, there might be something, kind of optional work now. There might be something that you're holding on to, some slight or some hurt given or received, even real or perceived, that you're about ready to let go of, you can put down. Something daft we've been carrying for too long. Or even some self-image you can loosen up. You don't have to decide now or fix anything, but it's worth bearing it in mind. Some of our patterns can be loosened. Good. And then a couple of loose, deep breaths. Physical breaths, just change the scene, change the inner landscape.